Hi, I'm Jen Taylor Campbell. I spent 12 years as a birth assistant, lactation consultant, and childbirth education trainer in the Bradley Method and Birthing from Within, and ran La Leche League meetings with a passion for supporting women who have become moms. Currently, I'm a certified birth doula for all happy births, regardless of where and how you deliver. I'm also a bereavement doula, helping families struggling with grief and loss from miscarriage, stillbirth, NICU, and fatal diagnosis, as well as an adoption and surrogacy doula and a certified lactation educator. In addition to my doula training, I have 30 plus years in the trenches on my own journey as a mom. I'm mom of 18, and yes, that's 18 kids. I've written a blog since 2011. I'm a published author of a self-help memoir since 2016, which is the free PDF included in this presentation. And I'm the host of the Becoming Parents podcast since May of 2017. I am a speaker and have 15 years of experience in the foster care sector as a parent and a trainer. I've received targeting training on topics such as crisis intervention, drug and alcohol addiction, surviving trauma, and suicide prevention, which has equipped me with a solid understanding of how to serve others who are experiencing trauma. On December 1st, 2022, I was the first doula in the state of Nevada to become a Medicaid provider. This has significantly altered the trajectory of my business and clientele in amazing ways. I'm also married to an amazing man in Reno, Nevada, where we live full-time in our renovated RV. I'm a runner, a minimalist, and healthy lifestyle enthusiast. Personally, I've experienced infertility up to IVF and 3 miscarriages, one of which was twins at 16 weeks gestation. I've had 1 hospital birth and 3 home births with midwives, 2 of which were water births. I breastfed 7 children, including 3 of my adopted babies, for 11 years in total, relactating for 2 of those adopted babies. I have a huge blended family and have suffered the loss of an adult son. Today, I'm speaking on relactation through adoption, although the protocol is the same in any situation. The first call that we got for foster care was for a baby that was only a few hours old. We were part of the foster adoption program in Alaska, meaning our preference was to take in children who would never have to leave. It would be their forever home. This meant that parental rights had been or would soon be terminated, and the child was considered free for adoption. And this was the case with my son. At this time, I was breastfeeding my 1-year-old daughter, and I asked our social worker if it would be okay if I breastfed the baby. Her response was incredible. She said, "If I don't know, I don't have to tell you no." We picked him up at 3 days old, and he latched without any issue. And we had a beautiful 2-year-long breastfeeding journey. Breastfeeding is supply and demand, and this was a great personal lesson that it truly can be that easy. I did do a couple things to increase my supply. I drank mother's milk tea, I increased my water consumption, and I increased how much food I ate. I was a stay-at-home mom and I wasn't pumping. So I didn't notice specifically a change in the composition from what you would consider toddler milk, breastfeeding my 1-year-old. Although I'm very aware that as a newborn, he would have been getting colostrum and he wasn't able to get that from me. Still, the benefits of breastfeeding an adopted baby with an established milk supply so far outweigh any other option. I wasn't really concerned about that. The other thing that made it easier is that he was a newborn. He was 3 days old, and that meant he was eating more frequently, but he wasn't eating high volumes of milk. So my milk supply had some time to build up while I was going through my nursing relationship with my son. And really, it was just such an exceptional experience to be able to bring this baby home and have an established milk supply, be able to latch him on and keep going like nothing happened. If you find yourself in a situation like this, just know that increasing your food and water and anything that you can take that increases the milk supply, but really supply and demand is not only true, but you'll feel and see it happening in yourself. This was really an exceptional experience, and I got all of the bonding that I would have gotten if I had given birth on my own. Later, I had adopted a 2-year-old son, and I called the birth mom to thank her for my son, which I did with every adoptive placement that I had. In that call, she let me know that she was pregnant and was scheduled for an abortion 3 days later. After that conversation, I told her that I worked with CPS and I could have 6 families that she could interview to adopt the baby if she elected not to get the abortion. After our conversation, she decided not to get the abortion and instead to electively give the baby up for adoption with CPS involved peripherally. At 27 weeks gestation, she asked me to be this baby's mom. Ecstatic, I said yes and asked if I could set up prenatal appointments as she hadn't been to the doctor outside of an early initial visit confirming the pregnancy and the gestation. A week later, she had her first appointment and I was there for every appointment. At that point, I had been a breastfeeding counselor for a decade and was also licensed as a lactation consultant through the IBCLC. I hadn't been breastfeeding for many months and felt strongly that getting help was important as I wanted outside perspective and guidance. I had never assisted a mom with relactation. Since we were doing a private adoption with social services involved peripherally, I also knew there was a chance that the adoption could fall through. So I opted not to relactate until after her delivery. I had also gone through breast augmentation prior to her birth, and although I wasn't concerned with that interfering, I did want to make sure enough time had passed for me to heal before medication and pumping. I connected with Lenore Goldfob using Jack Newman and Lenore's protocol, and she is amazing. I've been pregnant and breastfed 5 children prior. I had had 3 miscarriages, and it had been several months since I had stopped breastfeeding. You can relactate, however, even if you have never been pregnant. The protocols are designed to mimic what happens during pregnancy, and this works better if a woman is able to get on the protocol during the duration of the pregnancy. I elected to wait until the birth. The protocol includes renting and having on hand a hospital-grade double electric breast pump and setting up a pumping schedule, and a med protocol of 2 medications. The first medication is Diane 35 birth control pills. There has been a concern among some lactation consultants and medical professionals about the use of birth control pills. We're told that the combination birth control pill is bad for milk supply. However, when you take these, you aren't lactating yet. This is simulating the pregnancy. The birth control pill helps to induce lactation by readying the breast for milk production. It only takes 1 to 2 milligrams of oral progesterone to induce lactation. It's also important to remember that these protocols are short-term, less than a year. I skipped the sugar pills in the birth control pills, going straight back to the active pills. So there was a constant and even flow of hormones, and I never had a cycle. The second medication that I use is domperidone, which is an anti-nausea drug that was initially prescribed for people with upper gastrointestinal problems. It also has a side effect that results in an increase in prolactin levels. When some women would take the drug, this increase in prolactin levels could in turn cause lactation, which classifies this drug as a galactagogue. Very little of the domperidone gets into breast milk. The baby gets only minute amounts. Since domperidone does not cross the blood-brain barrier, it is much safer for the mother and baby and is prescribed to babies in Canada suffering from severe regurgitation. When my daughter was born, she immediately latched without issue. And since I was at the hospital for the delivery, I had access to her quickly and constantly. I was allowed to room in down the hall from the birth mom for the duration of her hospital stay. My daughter was born drug positive, something that we knew about going into the situation, and with lower birth weight, withdrawals, and difficulty maintaining body temperature, we spent a lot of time skin to skin, nearly constantly, and brought her into an office every other day to be weighed on a gram scale until her weight was consistently going up. She thrived breastfeeding, and I feel so strongly that the constant contact she was given did far more than assist her in regulating her body temperature. And there is so much science on kangaroo care, and it does not only have to be done by the mom. Possibly due to the fact that I started the protocol after my daughter was born, I never got a full milk supply. I used a supplemental nursing system, which is a system that has a bottle that hangs around your neck and then a tube that goes from the bottle to the tip of your nipple that you tape down on your breast. When the baby latches, they latch to both the breast with the tube, and then you can adjust the flow of the tube. This allows you to have the baby at the breast for every single feeding. This is a great way to supplement a milk supply that is lower and also gives you the opportunity to breastfeed for every session. 8 months later, my son was born and adopted. And not only was I at the hospital for the birth, his mom asked me to be her doula. Her labor and delivery were fairly fast. And because we were there and included in the plans, and this was also a private adoption, we were able to make all the decisions about his care. Due to the birth mom's water breaking early, he was 6 weeks premature and went to NICU immediately after birth. One of the best things about this hospital, which was the Alaska Native Medical Center, is that the staff assumed I would breastfeed, even as the adoptive mom, and prior to learning that I was a lactation consultant. And they asked me if I wanted an SNS. They had them there in stock and asked me if I needed assistance using it. And it would be outstanding if more hospitals followed this pro breastfeeding model. In order to take him home, I was trained to place an NG tube as his suck, swallow, breathe reflexes were a struggle for him. He was also taken into the doctor's office every other day to be weighed on a gram scale. And I increased his time on the breast as much as possible over a couple of weeks, weaning him off the NG tube to be exclusively breastfed. When we were asked to adopt our son, I contacted a woman who was donating an oversupply of breast milk, and I never needed to supplement with formula. He was exclusively on breast milk until he was over a year old. And this is also how my daughter, who was 8 months older, was exclusively breastfed for a year as well. My experience with relactation was specific to adoption, and both infants had medical issues we had to work through. Both were given breast milk to supplement my milk supply, and I breastfed both of them for about a year. I had exceptional support from family and friends. I knew people in the industry that were also very supportive, and I advocated for myself and for a breastfeeding relationship with these two adopted children. I advocated for myself by finding the information online and working with someone who was experienced. I also worked with a lactation consultant as far as getting the pump, using the pump, making sure that I had the correct flange size. It was important to me to not self-diagnose in this situation. Just because I was a lactation consultant and helped women with a lot of issues, it was apparent to me that I hadn't helped someone with this issue specifically, and that even with all the book knowledge that I had or the ability to fit someone to flange size, when you're talking about yourself and doing it on yourself, I wanted outsiders. So I had a lactation consultant who was a friend of mine that helped me with the pump setup, the flanges, just watching me go through the process and making sure that everything was good. I wasn't missing anything by being my own lactation consultant. So that was one thing that was important in advocating. And the other thing that was important was working with someone who had experienced this and was well-versed. And again, that was Lenore. I'm going to put her information up on the screen and leave it there for a little while. I can also share this URL with you if you're interested. I'm happy to send it. This goes through the entire protocol. I relactated over 21 years ago. These two babies are now 20 and 21 years old. So it's been a while. One thing that was challenging with this protocol in the beginning is that the medications are not as easily accessible in the United States. I was able to order everything directly from a pharmacy in Canada. It is totally possible for doctors in the United States to order these medications. You'll have to find the right fit of a person to order them, or find a way to order them online, because the US is a little bit more restrictive with them in particular. I never felt disappointed by not having a full milk supply. I knew when I started the protocol after the delivery, I didn't have the time that is the most beneficial for this protocol to work really successfully. But I was really happy that I had a milk supply, and breastfeeding has always been so much more than just the food value to me. This was an amazing bonding experience, and I am proof that it's possible for you too.